All right, y'all, welcome back to another video. Now, this is going to be focused on Florida and palms and fertilization of palms, but there's a lot of information here that you can translate to up north to deciduous trees and shrubs. And I'll do it for you guys up north. I'll do a how to fertilize your trees and shrubs in spring. I'll fly up north and do something up there for you guys. But for fall right now, especially in Florida, this is a great time to fertilize your palms and your other tropicals. So we're going to start today with my favorite palms. These are foxtail palms, and they are a self-pruning palm, which means you don't have to go up there and cut off the fronds when they die. They fall down on their own, self-pruning. So very clean and neat. They do get these nasty seed pods though that you got to cut off. I got to a couple of them too late. They get huge. They're like giant, antlers. So other than that though, these are great palms and they're beautiful, and I'm going to show you what to do. So the first product we're going to use is FloraGreene, which is from Greene County Fertilizer, and we're going to mix that with a little bit of MicroGreene, and then in the end we're going to use some manganese sulfate. If you have palm frizzle or yellow leaves on your palms, typically it's a manganese deficiency. So we're going to take care of all of that today. So the first thing we're going to do, you're going to get a bucket because we're going to do a little bit of dumping, that's what makes this so much fun. But before we do that, so I should say, we need to know how much do we need to put in here. And it's based on a calculation that's called DBH, which stands for diameter at breast height. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how to get the DBH of your palms here so that you know how much FloraGreene you're going to need. All right, so this is fun. You're going to remember some high school math. Diameter, how do you get the diameter of something? Well, the first thing you're going to do is you're going to measure around. Now, they make DBH tapes that you can get that stop you from having to do this calculation, but we're not doing that. I don't need a DBH tape. So all I'm going to do is take this string and I'm going to wrap it around here so I can see what the circumference of this tree is. So that goes right to there, okay? And again, if you had a flexible tape, it'd be easier, but I don't have one. So here we go. I'm just gonna use a tape measure like this. We're gonna measure, and the circumference of this palm is 35 inches. Close enough for government work. So now I know the circumference of this palm is 35 inches. Now, in order to get the diameter, you have to divide by this really cool number called pi, 3.14. See, now your high school math's coming back to you, or maybe middle school, depending. So we're gonna take that 35, I gotta grab my calculator, and we're gonna do 35 divided by pi, 3.14, and we get 11.1, so basically 11. So the diameter of this palm at breast height, is 11 inches. So just remember that, 11 inches, all right? Now we're gonna go back down here, we're gonna do our mixing. So now we know our diameter is 11 inches, and you look right here on the label and it says, palms apply at a rate of 1 ounce per caliper inch of diameter at shoulder height. Now this says diameter at shoulder height, I just showed you diameter at breast height. John Perry's shoulders are over my head, so either way, it's somewhere in here, depending who you are. Now we know what our rate is. It's 1 ounce per caliper inch. So I basically need 11 ounces of FloraGreene. And by the way, I know this is a crusty old bottle. These are just broken ones we can't sell that I take out of the warehouse. When you get yours, it'll be nice and clean and beautiful. But so that's the first thing we're gonna do. We're gonna make a little brew here. It'll be beautiful. So we need 11 ounces. Probably be smarter to put that on the flat surface. All right, so I'm gonna pour my 11. I shook this really well. Pour my 11 ounces. Probably should have done it where I could see better. Yeah, already over. Not very good planning today, but you guys get the idea. There we go, 11 ounces. So I'm gonna pour that in here. Okay. Now, we also have MicroGreene here, and this doesn't necessarily have a DBH calculation on it, but we're always just gonna add 1 ounce of MicroGreene. These are minor nutrients, so you don't need quite as much here. So we're not trying to overload. So just go ahead and put in 1 ounce. That's all you need. That's hard to measure that in there, but yeah, good enough. So always just 1 ounce of MicroGreene, doesn't really matter what your size is. And if you want to know how often you're going to do this, you're going to do this in spring and fall every year. All right, here we go. Now I'm trying the 0G. This is the 0G 3/4 hose. So just so you guys know, we're going to have some hose stuff coming up here. Now I'm just going to fill this bucket up about halfway. It's a 5-gallon bucket, so I'm going to put in about 2.5 gallons, maybe 3. Fill it right up. There we go. So bucket's halfway full. So now you're just going to take your bucket, dump it around the base of the palm, nice and even as you can. And pick up your hose and water it in a little bit. You don't want to do too much because you don't want this to run off, but you definitely want it to get through your rocks and run in. There we go. While we're here, I might as well do these. A lot of people ask me about these because they're beautiful. They're called tea plants, Ti plants, tea plants. And they do not need a lot of fertilization, but if you give them just a touch once a year, they'll keep their beautiful red and pinkish color. I mean, they're just gorgeous. Magenta, I believe that's what that is. Bob Ross magenta. So with these though, they don't need a lot. It's literally just 1 ounce of the FloraGreene and 1 ounce of the MicroGreene into that bucket, and then those three will share it. So it just gives you an idea. They don't need much. So really it's just a splash like that. And then we get a little bit of MicroGreene here and just a splash, like a bartender, you know what I'm saying? That's what you are for your plants. Pour that in there. Again, if you over fertilize these, they will grow like mad. And they are, those of you that have them, you already know they grow like crazy. You can cut pieces of them off, replant them, they'll regrow. You should never have to buy these. Just get a cutting from a friend. They are just wonderful, beautiful, they grow. They do require quite a bit of pruning. I've got these pruned out pretty well, but they'll get kind of nasty and thick. So you gotta get in there and prune them out. But for now, we're just gonna fill this up, same as we did with the palms. Get your squats in too. There we go. So we're just gonna go right here at the base. A little for you, a little for you, a little for you. That's it. Water it in. All right, good to go. Okay, now another type of palm you're gonna run into is like this pygmy date palm here, and it's got 2 trunks. Now there are multiple ways that you'll find online to measure DBH when you have a tree with multiple trunks, but you have to look at these as 2 separate trees. It's a clumping growth nature, but this is literally 2 separate trees. So in this case, we don't need to do anything different. We're just gonna measure the DBH of each one, and we're gonna add it all together. So the DBH on this first one, I'm gonna measure around here to get the circumference. And I'm gonna see how long my string is. 12 inches, oh, should be happy with that. So that first one is 12 inches. Now I'm gonna take the second one, and it's a little bit thinner here, but I think it'll measure up pretty decent. So we got 12 inches on that one, and we got, 12 inches on that one. So 24, now we're gonna divide 24 by pi. 24 divided by 3.14 equals 7.6. So 7.5. So remember, our FloraGreene here is 1 ounce per caliper inch. We got 7.5 between the two. They kind of share a root ball here. That's why we're doing it that way. So we're gonna get 7.5 ounces here. Okay. And then MicroGreene, again, just that 1 ounce splash. Don't need too much there. Pour that one in. Gotta get my hose. Okay. All right, done. Okay, the last one I'm gonna show you how to do are these. These are Areca palms, and these are the world's highest maintenance palms. They are also a self-pruning palm, which means the fronds fall off, but because they grow in these clumps like this, which is actually beautiful and they make a great screen, there's some positives here, but because they grow in clumps like this, you literally have to go in here all the time and pull these out constantly. And there was a point for about 3 years where I wasn't allowed to prune these, and so they got way out of hand, and I have been pruning these all year. I think I've taken 10 or 12 loads out of these because I let them go for so long. You'll see they are just everywhere. So however, I don't want to downplay these. They are beautiful. You can see they have these beautiful trunks. A lot of people ask if this is bamboo, but it's not. What that is every time a frond falls off of there, it creates that beautiful look right there. So they're gorgeous, and they're great for blocking or, you know, privacy, all that. So they are different though. They are a clumping palm, but there's just so many clumps that are in here. So I'm gonna show you how to measure these out and how to fertilize them, because you definitely don't want to over fertilize them. You want to keep them fertilized, and you definitely want to keep this palm frizzle from occurring, which we're going to show you how to keep that from happening, that frizzle there. But you don't want to over fertilize them, because they will outgrow you really quick and you'll be pruning them even more. I mean, seriously, if you're going to get these, just so you know, you got to prune them at least 3 times a year. All right, so I don't know if there's any perfect way to do these. By the way, you got to keep all these little suckers pruned out of the bottom here, because this is just robbing the tree. Again, high maintenance palms. So they're actually kind of fun to prune because they look really good when they're done. But all right, so there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, there's 8 different trunks in here, and they're all sharing one root system. So all I really do is I measure the fattest one, and then I just multiply times 2, because you don't want to overdo it. So I'm not going to measure all 8 of these. I'm not going to measure the whole thing by itself. I'm just going to measure the thickest one that's in there and multiply that one times 2. That's it. It's okay. We're not, again, we don't want to over fertilize these bad dogs. So I'm just going to measure around here for DBH on this thickest one. And with these, I wanted to mention, you know, if I was to get breast height, I'd be way up into there. So just anywhere on here that the trunk, that you can get to the trunk, just measure it that way. Diameter at breast height really only matters for ones you can stand up next to. So there we go. You can see this isn't super precision. You're not going to hurt anything. If you were to over fertilize these, all it's going to do is just make them grow so fast that you got to prune them every month. So let's see, what do we got here on the thickest one? We got 9 inches. So again, I take the thickest one in the clump and I multiply that times 2. So that's 18. 18 divided by pi, 3.14 equals 5.7. So we need 5.7. So we'll just call it 6 for government work or jazz. 6 ounces of the FloraGreene. There we go. 1 ounce of the MicroGreene. There we go. Maybe a little more. Oh yeah, be happy with that. There we go. Now the last thing we're going to do is we're going to add manganese sulfate. You can get this at any big box store. It's expensive. I only do this once a year, and I only do it when I see the palms starting to get a little yellow. That's typically a manganese deficiency. I'm not an expert in palms, so make sure you do your own research. But also there's this palm frizzle that you get, and I've always been told that's a manganese deficiency. And as long as I use this once a year, I usually don't have a problem. It's been a little while since I've done these foxtails. Now, I also don't do this on the pygmy date palms. They don't seem to get the problem. It's just on my foxtails and on my Areca palms. So a little bit different for the larger trunk trees. So there's a pretty big margin here. It says 1 to 6 pounds depending on the size of the tree. I just do 1 pound for each of my large foxtails, and all I do is I weigh it out. So I have my scale here, and I know I'm using this, but I'm not using the ounce markers in here. I'm just using this to hold weight. So I have the scale on pounds. I'm gonna put the cup on there and then tear that off. So now I'm at 0, and then I'm just gonna put in 1 pound of the manganese sulfate. Now you could dissolve this in water and spray it on the leaves as well, but these are too tall for me to do that, and that's pretty messy. So here we go, 1 pound. There it is. And then I just take and sprinkle it at the base of each one. So that's 1 pound, so 1 palm is gonna get that 1 pound. All right, now 2 quick things to think about here. The first one is that this will stain concrete bad. It'll leave black spots. So it'll stain your rocks too. I don't care, my rocks are red and black, and as you might be able to tell, I got a lot of weeds, dead weed. I'm due for a rock refresh here, but I'm just letting you know. And then the other thing is you could dissolve this in water first and then pour it on if you want to. but I just prefer to do the banding, and you'll see when I'm watering it already starts to dissolve. I don't water it all the way in though for complete dissolvation. I let some of it sit there, and this is as these get watered over the next few weeks, it'll all dissolve in. So, but you can stand there and water the whole thing in if you want to. Okay, now for the Areca palms, again, those are clumping, so I'm not gonna band those, I'm gonna broadcast underneath them, and I try to aim for about a half a pound per Areca clump. And so we've got, well, I don't even need to measure. This holds 4 pounds. So this will do 8. I'm just gonna fill this up. It says it's a 3-pound hopper, but I can get 4 pounds into it. And this is a 4-pound bag. So 4 pounds, and this will do 8 of the Areca clumps. Again, you can see mine are large. They're well over 15, 16 feet tall. If you had smaller ones, you could do a 1/4 pound per clump. So there we go. I got it on a nice low setting. I'm just gonna broadcast. Okay, one thing, I should have cleaned up a lot better. See, I have debris under here? Well, that's catching a lot of the stuff. So make sure you clean up a lot better than I did here, because you really want this stuff to have contact with your bare ground, or if you have mulch, that's fine, and then you're gonna water it in. But you can see I just kind of broadcast it all up in there. I'm trying not to have it pile up in the actual clumps. Some will get in there and that's fine. You don't want piles though. You really want it around on the ground. And again, I should have cleaned up a little bit better, so just want to let you know that. Last thing I'm gonna do, again, I'm just gonna water this in a little bit. And as it rains, or as I water these, you know, my sprinklers hit up in here, whatever, this manganese sulfate will get down into the soil. But I'm just gonna get it started here by giving these a little light watering. So there you go, there's how I fertilize my palms and my tropicals here. If you have any questions, leave those in the comments below and we'll start a discussion. But again, if you live in Florida, pretty much any part of Florida, this is a great time of year to do this. And I'll leave you links to the FloraGreene, the MicroGreene below, and you can pick up the manganese sulfate at your local Ace or Big Box, and I'll see you in the lawn.